We've all stumbled upon comics before,
I stumbled upon a comic strip.
either in newspapers, books, or even on the internet. But did you know all the work that goes into a comic strip, from concept to comic? This is Ryan Thiele, my husband and co-teacher at Brambleton Middle School. And in this video, we're going to be looking at the process that Ryan takes to create his comic strips that are currently being published weekly in his hometown newspaper. And we're also going to look at some of his past strips that have been published both in newspapers and magazines. Oh, and this is Finnegan, our family dog. We couldn't get through this video without holding him so he wouldn't stop barking. Make sure you stick around to the end of this video where I'm going to interview Ryan and you can hear what inspires him and what made him choose comics as his form of art to work with. And if you have any other additional questions for him, leave a comment below and check the description of the video for links to his website and Instagram account where you can see more of his art. Ryan's first published comic strip, Clayton Tucker and the Recess Raiders, ran daily for 1 full year in the Galesburg Register Mail from March 2002 to March 2003. At this point in Ryan's life, he had earned a BFA in painting from the University of Illinois and taken portrait painting and figure drawing classes at the Los Angeles Academy of Art. In addition, he had taken animation figure drawing classes at the Screen Cartoonist Union in LA. While working on these daily comic strips, Ryan was also taking classes full-time to get his education certification to become an art teacher. Ryan was hired to teach art for Loudoun County Public Schools, and it was there that his next strip, Will of the World, was published. For 20 weeks, the Loudoun Times-Mirror ran Will of the World, and he also had an article written about him in Elon magazine. As of 2019, Ryan is now beginning his 16th year teaching art for Loudoun County Public Schools. And it is in this year that Ryan is now creating his new comic strip called Wing-A-Ding-Ding. Wing-A-Ding-Ding has now ran for over 30 weeks in the McDonough Democrat newspaper out of Bushnell, Illinois. Wing-A-Ding-Ding is also being published in the Ashburn Villager magazine located in Ashburn, Virginia.
Wing-A-Ding-Ding was created for one purpose only: entertaining readers through laughing at and laughing with the main character, Clem Redbelly. Clem Redbelly can do and be anything for the sake of laughter.
When Ryan wants to begin a new comic strip, he'll spend a lot of time first sketching and developing an interesting character. He'll draw his character in multiple poses and from multiple different angles. Next, he'll create a rough draft of a comic strip. He will plan out all of the action and the text. When he feels ready to begin his final copy of the comic strip, he will trace a panel stencil that he created to Bristol board. Then he will trace his rough draft onto the Bristol board. He likes to use a non-photo blue pencil for this step. Once he's finished tracing, he will then darken in and refine the drawing with pencil. At this point, he doesn't need his draft anymore, but he refers to it. Next, Ryan switches to ink and does all of his lettering first. Once the lettering is finished, Ryan will begin to ink the strip, doing just the outlines first. He likes to use Speedball India ink for this step, and he uses a dip pen, which is just a nib placed into a holder that can be dipped into the ink. After tracing all of the outlines, Ryan will then fill in all of the solid areas with ink using a paintbrush. Then, after all of the ink is completely dry, Ryan will erase his pencil lines using a kneaded eraser. Now, when necessary, Ryan will make corrections using white gouache paint on a brush. Instead of drawing a new title label for each comic strip, Ryan copies and then attaches the label to the top of each new strip that he makes. And finally, he will use inking techniques to add value, which is shading, and detail to his comic strip. So as you just saw, there were 12 steps Ryan had to take to complete his comic strip, and when he's finished, he then scans and emails the strip for publication. So I'm going to ask Ryan a couple questions now. First of all, I know Ryan is very talented in many forms of art, specifically in painting and drawing. He has a degree in painting, and I'm curious, Ryan, can you explain to me and everyone else why you choose comics as your form of art?
I think the comic strip is one of the greatest American art forms, because not only does it include drawing, but you've got to know stage direction. You're telling a story. You're telling a story visually. You've got to know placement of the characters. You need to learn development of characters. You need to have the skills to show different poses of characters and facial expressions. It includes caricature. So you're like a film director where you are designing the characters, the costumes, the backgrounds. You're telling the story, you're doing the editing. And I just think it includes everything I'm interested in one art form.
Awesome. Okay, so I have two more questions for you. So my second question is, what are you most inspired by? Or where do you get your ideas from for your characters and for your funny jokes? Because let's face it, most of your comic strips are pretty funny.
Well, all I do is I first either think of something I want to draw. So like my little bird character, maybe I think, okay, maybe I want to show him fishing. So I'll sketch him fishing, and then I try to think of something funny that can happen. Or I might just have a random thought that could be a good comic strip. So it's either starts from an idea first, or just from a sketch. As I'm sketching, it builds.
Do you visualize the characters in your head, or like how do you know how to make the drawings look real? Like how do you know how to make it look like the figures of these animals or people are doing something that actually could be done? Like, how do you make it look so good?
Because it's in my head. It's like a movie in my head. I just have to get it out from my head, down my arm, onto the paper.
Okay, that takes some skill and talent there. So my last question is, what artists or cartoonists are you most inspired by?
Okay, well first, my grandfather owned a donut shop and he loved cartooning. So I always knew he liked cartooning, so it started there. And then, growing up in a small town in Illinois, I would go to the library often, and there was one book that I would check out pretty much every time I went. And that was Comics and Their Creators. It was published in the 1940s, and I would check this out, and what I really loved about this is it would tell the biographies of famous cartoonists from the 1930s and 40s, and I just thought I wanted to be one of these guys. And it shows them sitting at their drawing boards and tells how they came up with their characters and how they do their work. And I would just read this and check it out every chance I got. So something about this book really fascinated me and made me want to check it out every chance I got. My dad eventually bought it from the library for me as a gift.
I'll put a link in the description of this video to this book on Amazon so that you can pick up a copy of it yourself if you choose to do so.
But also at the library, that same library, I would also check out this book. This is not the same book I got, it's just a different copy of it. But it was a book about Charles Schulz, and I just loved checking this out because it showed actually how he worked at his drawing board and how he came up with his characters and his whole sketching process from beginning to end. And I really was fascinated with this book. So those two books about cartooning, something about them just jumped off the bookshelf for me ever since I was little and just inspired me. And then later, as I got older, I, at the same library, discovered Al Hirschfeld, the famous caricaturist. And he was another cartoonist that I really studied and became fascinated with. So I really appreciate his quality of lines and his use of caricature, and how he only uses black and white, but with a variety of different pen strokes gets a variety of textures and values. So those were 3 big influences. But then when it comes to just regular drawing, now I have a lot of favorite famous artists, like painters and so on, but when it comes to drawing and cartooning, John Byrne was probably the biggest influencer in how to draw the human figure well. He reimagined Superman in the 1980s. So he came up with a new version of Superman after his whole story got too convoluted. They decided to start from scratch, and he was the man responsible for creating a fresher version of Superman. But he's done many characters in DC and Marvel, but I just always appreciated his simple but effective drawing style and his compositions of each frame and his storytelling. And then Disney animation, I discovered this book when I was in college. This is the Illusion of Life, and this is the Bible of Disney animation. And I use elements from this often, just from how to, even though this is about animation, it's still, they talk about how to break down characters, developing story, and telling a story through pictures. So those are probably the biggest influences in my cartooning work.
Well, thank you so much, Ryan, for letting me do this interview. I get to live my life with this man all the time. I get to watch him work on his comics on a daily basis. I know his mind is always full of ideas, and I felt it was important for him to be able to share this all with you, because I think he has a lot of talent that needs to be seen, and a lot of information that can be shared to other kids and adults who are wishing to make comic strips as well. So if you have any additional questions for Ryan, pass them along to me, add them to the comment section, and again, check out the description of the video for links to some of the books that Ryan told you about and to his own webpage and Instagram account, and follow along because he's constantly still making new art.
Thank you, Bethany.
Thank you, Ryan. Thanks for watching.